Welcome back to Game Geeks. I'm your host, Kurt Wiegel. We are coming up on our 100th episode, which is a pretty big deal in my opinion, because that means we've been around for a while, that we've had some good times, we've had some bad times, we've had 4th edition, and we just basically decided that we wanted to bring it back here to the comic shop where it all started all the way back in episode 1. And if you want to go back even further than that, all the way back to the original cast of Game Geeks, I'm really like the sequel, and then film it here for one last set, because after this set of episodes, we're done with the comic shop. It's not going to be around anymore, and we'll be filming in other locations. So soak it in while you can, mop up the ambiance, enjoy the comics behind me, because after this, we're not going to see it much. That being said, our review for today is the Cortex Core Rules role-playing system. Interesting story with this. This first saw the light of day with the Serenity role-playing game, and then got revised, which we reviewed some time ago, got revised for the Battlestar Galactica role-playing game, which really was a revision and almost a complete overhaul. The core mechanic was still there, but they cleaned up a lot, they fixed some up, and it worked really well. And in terms of the cleanup. And now there's another book, Demon Hunters, which we're reviewing in the near future, and this, which is the core rules for this game. This is the rules with everything else pulled out. There are 3 sample settings at the back, which are fairly interesting, and something you don't see very often, which is a completely non-magical, non-supernatural, non-science fiction setting. Literally, it's like Law and Order, the role-playing game, using the Cortex core rules for that setting. Now, beyond that, what this does is it takes the base rules for Cortex, which are essentially your attribute as a die type, your skill as a die type, you roll them together, add them up, and you get your target number. That's essentially it. It's actually a pretty smooth system. The biggest complaint that I have heard of it in my time with the game since Serenity is that because you're using 2 die, the probability curves that we're used to as gamers are all skewed. They're all very strange and very hard to keep up with. Once you get beyond that, it's actually kind of a fun little system. There are a series of complications and assets that you use that help define your character, whereas in something like Serenity, where they were mainly 1 die type, like you had Fightin' type, which was I think it was like a D6 or a D8 or something. This way, you have some of these have a spectrum of die types that you can use for a given situation. Starting with the Cortex core rules and going into Demon Hunters, which we're reviewing in a little bit, it also gives you some ideas for supernatural abilities, for magic, for psionics, for some limited superpowers, cybernetics, all of these things, and how you can bring those to your game. Something that Battlestar and Serenity really didn't have. This is a nice rules-light game. Initially I was really put off by it in Serenity, mainly because of that weird mechanic and the way the probability threw you one way or another. But it's presented really well here. Yeah, you still have the 2 die mechanic, but you get over that pretty darn quick, in my opinion. And the thing that really jazzed me about the hard copy of this book the most is it tells you on the back, right here, it says free ebook from Drive-Thru Rpg.com, included with your purchase. See the title page for details. Inside here, it gives you a code. Now, I'm not going to show you what the code is so you can all go scurrying out and get a free ebook. That's not my intent here. But it gives you a code so you can download the core rules from Drive-Thru. And what it will do is you now have an extra copy, so if you want to print off certain pages for your players, they can have access to them. If you want to reproduce entire sections like how psionics works, or sample combat to give to your players, or to have just as a reference sheet for yourself, you can have that too. Bottom line for Cortex is it's a nice rules-light role-playing game that has some really cool ideas for their plot points, which is sort of the drama points, bennies and other games that you can use for your game. It gives you some really good examples on how to use the plot points in this for the plot device, which is something that most of my players have kind of fallen down on when it comes for using their drama points or their bennies. So it's a nice benefit for that. There are 3 settings in the back. One of them, like I said, is just a straight like Law and Order, but in a fictional world franchise. One is called Arcady, which is sort of as it describes it, as a Southern Gothic fantasy of a town in the South that's sort of slipping off into the fantasy realm. The other one is for the Star of the Guardians, which is a series of books by Margaret Weis. That's it's sort of like how you can use the Star of the Guardian setting for the Cortex rules. I like this. It's a good, if you're turned off by Unisystem and you're not quite ready to take the plunge into Savage Worlds, this is a nice neutral ground for it. I kind of recommend this. It's just another good rules light system that has a lot of good things going for it and a lot of options for your game. For Game Geeks, I'm your host, Kurt Wiegel. Good day and good gaming.